This episode is brought to you by Vinitaly International Academy, the toughest Italian wine program. 1,000 candidates have produced 262 Italian wine ambassadors to date. Next courses in Hong Kong, Russia, New York, and Verona. Think you make the cut? Apply now at vinitalyinternational.com.
Hello, everybody. My name is Polly Hammond, and you are listening to Uncorked, the Italian wine podcast series about all things marketing and communication. Join me each week for candid conversations with experts from within and beyond the wine world as we explore what it takes to build a profitable business in today's constantly shifting environment. This week, we are joined by mother and daughter team Susan and Chloe Pate. You may not recognize their names, but you will undoubtedly know their work. Pate International has been creative genius behind such iconic labels as Opus One, Harlan, Campari, SKYY Vodka, and dozens more. Listen in today as we hear their incredible stories of the artistry and impact of such unparalleled wine designs. Let's get started. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being here. I have mother and daughter, Susan and Chloe Pate from Pate International in San Francisco. And I know that you guys are very modest, but I don't have to be modest about your work. You are stars of the label, visual design, branding, and wine. You've been around forever. You have an absolutely unparalleled client list with everyone from Opus One to Harlan to Campari and SKYY Vodka. So it does go beyond just wine. And when I had a chance to meet you this year, I had a real fangirl moment because I was like, oh my heavens, these are the women who are creating a lot of the visual identities that are just a part of our wine world. And yet it's never talked about. You're not super public with the work that you do. So I'm glad to get to pick your brain today.
Well, thank you, Polly, for having us on. We're delighted to be here, and big thanks for that intro.
Right. Thank you. I understand you have a large Italian audience that are fans of your podcast. Is that right?
You have an Italian story. You do. Let's hear your Italian story.
I received a very lovely letter from the Marchesi de Frescobaldi family asking me if I would work with them. They wanted to do a project which was like a joint venture with Robert Mondavi. I thought, because of this letter, that I was the only person working with them. So I was very casual about it because I figured it would be a back and forth thing. And so I did this, was the presentation. Yep. And I did it just in pencil. And Tim Mondavi was going to go over to meet with them. And I had it scotch taped onto a bottle just as a concept. And so unbeknownst to me, 50 other designers presented, and there I heard just the explanation of what was there. I wasn't there, but they had full printed, mocked up, packages all completed. And two of the brothers, went into, and they to the sea of these labels. And then the head Marchesi was Leonardo. Oh gosh, I think so. Anyway,
these are not words that we normally have in conversations. So the head Marchesi actually had to pick it. I love this. Yeah, head Marchesi.
I know all these people's names very well, and I'm spacing out right now. Anyway,
I love it.
So he wasn't at the presentation, and he came in later. And Bob Mondavi back here in Napa had a cold, and so he was home, and we had business we needed to talk about. So I went up to Wapo Hill with Mary, his secretary, so we could go over and get some work done. And while I was there, the phone rings, and it's this Marchesi de Frescobaldi. And he said, Bob, I'm here, and there's a sea of wine packages in front of me. He said, I don't know. I looked at him and he says, there's only one that speaks to me, but it's just a piece of paper taped on the bottle. And I went, oh, that's mine. I know that's mine. Anyway.
That's awesome.
So then we're now all on the phone, and he said, oh, you have to, this is, Susan, you have to go over and see see there. So I went over there, and here's amazing. The church, the Santo Spirito, is like an L shape for the palace, the Marchesi Palace. And so all of the family on Sunday, they each have apartments. They open their louvers in this room, and they look down into the church. So the Marchesi said, my brothers, we have been looking at this our whole life. And he said, you've got to come over here. And so what it was, they had the communion in their apartments, look down, and over the centerpiece, over the altar, is this image of the sun, rising sun. And the Luce is, there's so many little stories. I have to slim it down here. So Luce, Margaret Mondavi came up with that because we were talking about all kinds of names, and Luce would come and go, oh, that's a really good name. And she's brilliant. She said, and it means, light in the womb, and then, light to grow the grapes, and it just a wonderful name. So it all like fit, really well. And so I went over there because they hadn't presented. I then did a mock-up on a bottle, that a finished mock-up, and took it over because it hadn't been presented to everybody. And I go into the office, and there's like, I don't know, a row of secretaries, like, 12 secretaries, and walk down the center, and everyone's going like this, because women didn't go to meetings. They this was something quite unique. And so we go in, and I'm talking, and I take out the package, and I make the presentation. And one of the other brothers, and I said, and the name Luce, and he goes, yes, Luce. And then he stands up and he goes, not only is it in the womb and in the stuff, but it's in the soil. You must go to Montepulciano, to the vineyard. And here, the soil. It's got all this mica. It's all got this all light in the soil.
Yeah, like gold flecks. Right?
Yeah. So it must, just little. So anyways, it was very exciting. I have a picture, I think, of all of us standing there while they all, they were all lined up, big smiles on their face.
So I think something interesting about that is that, Susan, you would have been barely old enough to drink when you actually started on this path of working for wineries. Like you would not have been this audience member that we talk about, like loves wine. You would have been early possibly in your wine experience. Did you know a lot about what you were getting into? I mean, why wine?
Well, I came from the Midwest. I graduated from Miami University, Oxford, Ohio, and came to San Francisco shortly after I graduated. And coming from the Midwest, wine didn't accompany your dining experience at the time I was growing up. So I did not really have a wine experience until I came to San Francisco and experienced at a dinner my first real glass of Cabernet Sauvignon. And it was, wow, what is this? And I, right from the beginning, got into food and wine, discovering there's more than one type of lettuce. Going to the Marina Safeway, there were like 9. So food and wine just were extraordinary experiences coming from the stage that was at in the Midwest. So I had a fine art training, and I started, being aware of the wine industry, and very shortly came into United Vintners, which was a marketing arm. It was from the families, the wine families got together and created United Vintners to market their wines. And I was the first person in the door I had a silkscreen press and came to make posters for the wine industry. And I started right like day one, and I worked for them as a freelancer solidly for several years, and had the experience of working. They had 30 brands. So I worked on all 30 brands, from their modest low price wines to their ultra super premium wines at that time. And just had a really wonderful exposure to the people, the industry, and the wines.
When you were doing that there with your silk screen in hand, how much time was being spent thinking about who the audience for each one of these different wines were? Or how did we speak to them? Or, both in terms of language and in terms of visual design. Was that part of the conversation back then?
It came automatically because silkscreen is more of a fine art medium. And so I had some very successful pieces right off the bat with more of that approach. And the market responded very positively. So I don't know that they came out with another wine all the time I was with them that I didn't present the market image. The point of sale was very big at that time, and I went, I went really to the market directly by showing the market and showing lifestyle and situations that people were enjoying wine. And so the pieces that I produced themselves were direct communicators to the audience. And I would say everything was very successful. So I was learning as I was producing.
Chloe, you're here. You are the second generation of Pate International. There's every possibility that there could be a third generation coming along, behind you to do this one day. In wine, we have our multi-generational families. We've got our dynasties, and with them come both beautiful positive advantages, but there are also, there are challenges and there are lessons involved in working together in a family space. Do you feel like that experience of, Chloe coming on board as second generation gave you some better insight into the challenges of working across these multiple generations of wine families?
Sure. In a way, I feel like I've always been here. When I was, a child, I was here sweeping the floors. And in high school, I'd fill out the FedEx forms and send the faxes because it was quite a long time ago. And in college, I went to the California College of Arts and I'd work here part-time. And then after I was finished with school, I was here full-time. So I feel like I've always been a part of this. And so the transition kind of responsibilities, what we contribute has been kind of a slow going, seamless kind of passing of the baton. So for us, it was quite easy. It just took a long time. But I've seen, there's all kinds of stories for the families, the wine owners' families and their children, where sometimes the transition happens smoothly, and sometimes it destroys the family. So, for instance, the Mondavi and the well-chronicled story of how that fell apart there. And in other cases, like with Bill Harlan and his son, Will, I've watched them. They're transferring, very well right now as Will takes over more and more responsibilities with Harlan Estate.
Both of the children are involved.
Yes.
I think the key is involving the next generation in the business and as many different positions as a family member can experience in that business, the better, because of their understanding and putting together then the big picture. So a number of the successful families that we've worked with, where the kids are involved, maybe in the vineyard or during harvest or in cellaring, and then getting exposed to the marketing and what goes into that. So it's building an idea of the industry through the work and the participation. I think that works much. Again, every situation is different, but if it goes from the founder, who is usually very involved in the product and the resources and the whole structure of the business, if the offspring are put in, say, marketing, or then the other one's put in production or whatever, then you kind of, and sometimes, 50-50, sometimes that works great. Other times it doesn't, because of egos and sphere of influence, and, things come up that do cause problems. But we have enjoyed Round Pond. We work with their children and adults. And, Bill Harlan, worked with Bill Harlan for 40 some years. And so it's absolutely wonderful, because I remember with his kids when they were little kids. And so now we're working with his son, and there's a lovely continuum there, both in the transfer of the image. For our clients that are in to establish something that has durability and is a classic quality to it that will ride through time, and that the brand continues to develop, as does the whole influence, the realm of influence of that brand. So you're actually building all the time, and it's an opportunity when this next generation comes along to not change it, but really understand it and protect it, and be able to, maintain that heart and soul that is part of the original, branding, and done properly, which we do properly. What we put into it, which is we're doing our job for our clients. So we're putting what they want to present, what they want to communicate, and who they are into the package. So there's a soul in there, and it comes from the combination of people, intent that is put into the product to begin with. And we come from a fine art background, so we call ourselves commercial fine artists. If we were just artists, we would be art for art's sake, but we're commercial fine artists. So we're using our fine art to, project imagery and desirability for our clients' products.
So when you take a brand, and I don't want to, focus too much on any particular brand, but since you did mention Harlan, let's kind of run with that. Absolutely iconic design, and definitely in the super premium category. How have you seen these brands, where you've worked with them for decades, themselves have to evolve either their visual styling or their communication to meet the changing needs of let's talk about digital. We've gone from broad market, print collateral, traditional media, now to a space where do you have Instagram accounts, and what does your Facebook look like? And what about your websites? And, do we need AR, VR, QR code? Do you have any stories about that we can learn from?
Yes. I'm thinking of a couple stories. Well, starting with Bill Harlan, we have extensive record keeping. And so from every aspect of the graphics, we basically control it. And when someone needs something, they get exactly the form of that something that they need for the means of application that it's going to be used. So if any changes come along the way, they go through us, and we absolutely, maintain the integrity of all the original artwork. I think a big problem is when things are passed along. I mean, even starting in production, if you're going back not to the original master, but if you're going back to the last label, there's incremental degradation that that then it gets to a point of like, this is not working. Yeah, it's been destroyed. There are other, and then you go, oh, well, marketing comes in. They say, we need a new design. Well, if the design and the presentation of it and the level of quality, if you come up with a better paper, you can make an adjustment, or we would recommend an adjustment. But to save money and go for lesser quality or fewer colors, or let's drop this and we can do this instead, and it degrades, so it doesn't have that impact or that desirability that the first, or communication. So especially in the high end, the quality from start to finish has to be, right there and maintained. So in fact, let's have Chloe tell you what we do for the Harlan to preserve the art.
Oh,
Okay.
We're like the gatekeepers for anything that goes through Harlan, and we have things pretty much always come through us to make sure that there are no changes, or anything that shouldn't be changed is not addressed. So I think that they keep the very premium, their very premium look, and it's very kind of traditional, and they've kind of stuck to that way of marketing, especially for, I think, Harlan Estate. I don't think that there's that much out there in the social media world, at least to my knowledge. And I think one thing that they do to kind of stay fresh is starting brands. So PROMONTORY is one of their new brands. That was Will, his son's kind of first big venture. Will also spearheaded the Mascot. So in a way, they kind of keep them separate. And I think that they're different separate brands have different appeals to different kinds of markets. And
different terroir and different, there is a profile that they achieve in their brands as they have created them, and very much in line with the gift from the terroir they're using for that particular brand. In his system, if you're going to apply his graphics, if you're going to do a tasting in Europe or there is a level of presentation that, they maintain. That is very important to have a seamless identity, and every situation you may have a different purpose and required a different manipulation of the artwork, but it is all done to maintain the look and feel of the brand.
So what's interesting to me when I hear you talking about that is that particular instance is very much what we see right in our luxury brands, where there is a often multi-generational vision. There's a real control over the branding. And I mean that in a positive way. Like, that branding is sacrosanct and it's meant to live beyond whoever is running the show today. What's interesting to me, though, is that we also have a lot of non-luxury brands. And we have this conversation all the time where we're like, okay, well, do you have branding guidelines? Do you have messaging guidelines? Is there a repository? Do we have historic labels? Like we go in to try to help with the marketing, and this has never been a part of, they don't even know from the beginning that these are things that they need to be thinking about. When you get someone who walks in the door and they're really enthusiastic and they have an idea for the name, or they want the name and they want the label, because this is like the baby birthing part of it, right? It's so beautiful and creative. How do you get them to stop, sit down, think about their goals, and then start making decisions that will empower a really strong brand from your perspective? What does that onboarding process look like for you?
That is a very, very key point in a project. And every client, whether they have a brand or they are going to remodel a brand, or they change the price and want to go to an upgrade, what they desire is key. Now, if someone comes in and say, we want to have a super ultra premium brand, and this label, my grandfather started this and isn't we want to maintain this. Well, that's fine for all the people that love the brand, that know it from the grandfather. But if it doesn't have that original soul in it and quality in it, then it won't carry independently and communicate independently as it moves through time. So if when we establish the original, if we're starting from scratch, we solve the problem with original art, original concept, everything working to solve that problem. If say I'm thinking of Round Pond, very successful, lovely family, and when they came, they had a prize-winning package that they said, we've won all these prizes with this package, but we can't get the price. And we go, yeah, we love your package, but we see why. So we had an opportunity to start over and get to know them and what they had and what they were wanted to achieve and what opportunities they had, and worked with them to develop a whole family of integrated messaging from a graphic packaging standpoint. Because in their case, they have more than wine. They have syrups and olive oils and other products, and they're all wonderful. So in this case, we created a durable brand that has a family, very strong family. If you go to a farmer's market, you can go, there's Round Pond. And it's flexible because products change. So again, every situation is different. We also have start from scratch. We have wine. We don't have a name. But we have a good distribution. And so we can start right from scratch. We can come up with a name. We can come up with a story of whatever information we can get about the wine or background or terroir, if there is any, or intent of the wine profile, and work with that and come up with name, work with the client to come up with the name and the presentation of it. So it's very important to know where you want to go, maybe where you are now and where you want to go, or who do you want to be, and then figure out how to get there. And the package is your point of sale. It is the support of your imagery, your intent, and who you are. So it's absolutely critical. And for longevity, our packages have basically remained unchanged since we've done them 20, 30, 40 plus years ago. And the maintenance of the imagery and the continually staying at a premium place, unquestionably, is very desirable and makes a brand very stable. And the intent of the winemaker to maintain the quality of that wine. So it is a partnership between the wine and the presentation.
How do you know when to evolve? At what point? So you've got a brand, they've been with you forever, they've been on the market forever. Are there indicators where, you and the brand have to sit down together and say, we think it's time for a change?
Yes. It depends again on the original art. Is that a piece that is a work that is got the integrity and the soul and the art and the beauty of that art that will ride through time? I like to tell Robert Mondavi's story because he was a very, influential, and we worked so closely with him for decades. And where he came in, there were only 7 brands on the market. And he came up with his first label, which was the front elevation drawing of his winery from the architect, who was Cliff May. And so they go, well, we need something more in there. So there was a woodcut artist, James Dean, up in the valley, who James Dean was the printer. He'll come to me anyway. So they hired him to put in a background. Again, it was all black on a piece of yellow paper, and the wine. Mr. Mondavi, at every moment of his life, on all fronts, going forward to have the best of the best and improving. And he said he was always ready to let go of something, but to go forward. So I met Robert Mondavi through Count Frédéric Chandon de Brière of Moët Chandon, because I had worked for several years with Domaine Chandon from the very starting from there.
Who you helped name, correct?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
And they were going to call it Chateau Frédéric. And it was too themey for California at that time. We've got a lot of chateaus since then. So I came up with Domaine Chandon, and then we did do a wine called Fred's Friends, which was really fun. In fact, I have the painting here. So Robert was, because he was he said, call me in a few years. Fred introduced us, and he had the project of Opus that he was working with Baron Philippe de Rothschild on. And they had been working for a few years, and the problem, he said, making the wine's not a problem, but the label has been a problem. So he said, call me in a year. But 3 years passed, and I actually forgot about that. And apparently they were having all of kinds of people work, from Andy Warhol to big design, Walter Landor, big design studios, to come up with a label that was not too French for Robert or not too something else for Baron Philippe. So that was a wonderful, there's a whole bunch of stories. I could go on for a long time on Opus One stories. But out of that, we continued to work. Well, we could still continue to work with Opus One. We did their recent, it was released last year, their Overture label. And Bob Mondavi said, I have some problems here, and my reserve is getting sold for regular price. And the reason was that you show the bottle and your thumb went across the snipe in the corner that said reserve. And so I had the opportunity to do his labels. And everything, as history has shown, is, super, super successful and really set the bar in Napa Valley and on the world stage. And he was always focused on having his wine sit on the table of the best wines of the world, and created this wonderful market and image for Napa Valley as a great wine producing area. Yeah,
I think to a question you were asking before, Polly, I think Robert Mondavi is a good example of a client we've worked with where we watched them do only traditional marketing, pre-internet kind of marketing, and keep up with the times. They just did a big NFT release with the House of Bordeaux and Bernardo, and some beautiful porcelain vases, and gorgeous. And so I think they're doing a great job of maintaining,
bringing back to life,
bringing the Robert Mondavi winery brand into a place where it's a new modern classic, and they're bringing back, they're working to bring back that heart and soul and educate people about it and highlight it, and also stay contemporary with their collaborations and their social media and all the stuff they do to promote the brand.
So if we talk about big brands, I know what we also hear is big money, but we have a lot of small brands. We've got beautiful artisanal brands coming on the market who often discount or question if this kind of visual branding and imagery is a good investment from day one. And I'll tell you actually a story, a very honest story. We have this discussion in my office all the time, because if I have a client who's got a finite budget, we look at, okay, how do we divvy this up between, say, we've got branding, on the one hand, and we've got marketing on the other hand. And it can be quite a difficult decision for young brands to make. So what would you say to some of these younger, smaller, who are trying to make a decision around how they invest money? Not how much they invest, but just literally what the value of professional design brings to their business case, their profile, their brand awareness, and ultimately their marketing and sales.
I think that investing in the imagery and investing in your brand identity in the beginning is a very wise use of your budget. I think to spend the money on marketing and getting your name out there and getting your brand out there, if your branding isn't solid, then you're getting brand awareness for a brand that's going to need to change when you have a little more budget. So really to figure out who you are and figure out how to visually communicate that to your new audience, I think is an essential step in order to make a successful brand.
Right. If you don't have a big budget, you can, make, say, more modest decisions in your packaging, the amount of techniques, etc., that you use. But that communication, the pure communication of that desirability, is something that you should invest in to get it right.
You know what I really love about that, because of course, this podcast, right, we focus on marketing, communications, and strategy. And it's a really nice wrap up, because the thing that we all, I think, are saying to our clients are, do the work in the beginning. Understand who you are, know what's important to you, know how that's going to intersect really with your audience, but don't rush forward, right? Without having made those core decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have that information sitting behind you, then you can make decisions about how you spend. You can brief great agencies, when it's worth it to hire it, and you have all of that, whether it's personality, messaging, visuals, what channels you're going to be on. So I really appreciate both of you taking the time. I know you're super busy, and I've taken a lot of time from you today. And just personally, that was so great for me. I could sit here and keep talking to you. I look forward to being in San Francisco and getting to meet you in person. So thank you, Susan and Chloe, so much for your time today. And that's a wrap for this week's episode of Uncorked. Thank you for listening, and a very special thank you to Susan and Chloe Pate for joining me today. The Italian Wine Podcast is among the leading wine podcasts in the world, and the only one with daily episodes. Tune in each day and discover all our different shows. And be sure to join us next Sunday for another look at the world of wine marketing.
Guys, I'm Joy Livingston, and I am the producer of the Italian Wine Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are the only wine podcast that has been doing a daily show since the pandemic began. This is a labor of love, and we are committed to bringing you free content every day. Of course, this takes time and effort, not to mention the cost of equipment, production, and editing. We would be grateful for your donations, suggestions, requests, and ideas. For more information on how to get in touch, go to ItalianWinePodcast.com.